Hello everyone, welcome to Econ Insight Beyond the Classroom. So back in 2008, Zimbabwe was severely affected by hyperinflation. The prices were so high that an egg costed around 250 billion Zimbabwe dollars. The highest currency note issued by the Central Bank of Zimbabwe is 100 trillion Zimbabwe dollars, which is equals to only 40 US cents. These days also, Zimbabwe is facing severe inflation and the economic condition of Zimbabwe is not in such a good state. Now, the inflation rate is estimated to be 89 sextillion%, which is 89 followed by 21 zeros. So the topic for today is how hyperinflation occurred in Zimbabwe and how it affected its economy. Now, when we talk about hyperinflation, we need to understand the concept of inflation first. Inflation is a persistent and sustained increase in general price level over the period of time. Now, let's say, for example, there is an increase in world oil price, or let's say there is a new government. So this gives an indication to our producers and consumers that since there is a new establishment, there might be an increase in price level, and once the inflation is predictable, it is least harmful. But when we talk about hyperinflation is completely opposite. Hyperinflation is when there is a rapid increase in price level over the period of time and it exceeds more than 50% inflation rate per month, which causes the real value of money to fall. So hyperinflation usually occurs when there is an excessive money supply and it causes economic chaos, because the price level is rising, but the gross domestic product, the national output, it stays constant, which causes the purchasing power of money to fall and real income of people to fall. Now, moving towards the case of hyperinflation in Zimbabwe, it has also been tested in AS level examination of economics in October-November 2013 and in October-November 2021. So the students of AS Economics who are watching this video can even attempt that case study. So one of the main reasons why hyperinflation occurred in Zimbabwe was helicopter money. It's like throwing money out of the window of helicopter for people to use, not literally, metaphorically. In helicopter money, the interest rate was decreased by government of Zimbabwe, the tax rate was decreased by government of Zimbabwe, and just because of these two factors, the income level of consumers rose and they went crazy and started spending on goods and services, which further led to an increase in aggregate demand and an increase in price level. So this was one of the main reasons why hyperinflation occurred in Zimbabwe. Other causes are economic mismanagement. There was poor fiscal planning. There was poor taxation policies. There were poor government spending policies. Also, there was an increase in money supply. They printed money like paper, which further led to an increase in hyperinflation. And it was to such an extent that prices were rising every 24 hours. The hyperinflation was so severe that the prices were doubling every 24 hours. So what producers and consumers agreed upon was that instead of paying by cash, producers were willing to take checks, but a check by a double amount. Reason being that by the time that producer will take their check to the bank, to specific bank to cash it in, the money will lose its value. And consumers agreed to pay by check because they did not want to go through that hassle. Just like I just told you that an egg costed around 250 billion Zimbabwe dollars. So it was very expensive to buy an egg, a loaf of bread. So instead of carrying a bag filled with money, consumers preferred paying by check. Now, if we talk about the effects of inflation on Zimbabwe, the first and foremost effect would be on real income. You see, whenever the price level rises, real income, purchasing power of consumers, it falls. The second effect will be on pension earners. You see, pension earners are retired people who cannot work anymore. They get pensions from government or the company they used to work for. Now, since there is an increase in inflation, they would have to cover up their expenses and their necessities in their specific income, which means that their purchasing power is falling, but still they have to manage somehow. Also, this inflation will give rise to moral and social hazards. You see, people will get unemployed, and once they get unemployed, there might be few individuals that might go towards the life of crime, and this will lead to an increase in crime rate. The crime rate will rise, unemployment rate is rising, beggary rate will rise, divorce rate will rise, suicide rate will rise, death rate will rise. So these are all social and moral hazards that an economy might face if there is an increase in inflation. Talking about countries such as Zimbabwe, in which prices are doubling every 24 hours, you see this will create panic buying. Why will this create panic buying? Because people will try to buy the necessities as soon as they can, so they don't have to pay a higher price later on. So this panic buying will further lead to shortage in the market, and once there is shortage created, it will further lead to an increase in prices. It even came to a point where supermarkets they stopped displaying price tags on goods, and consumers only found out about the price level at checkout because the prices were rising at such a rapid pace. And people stopped using money as a medium of exchange. They instead preferred barter system. What barter system is? Exchanging goods and services with another individual instead of using money. So people usually went for barter system instead of using currency note, the Zimbabwe dollars. So when we talk about the policies, the first policy the government of Zimbabwe used was currency abandonment. They stopped using their own local currency, instead went for foreign currencies such as US dollars. And people there, they even introduced the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. They even introduced a gold-backed digital token as a legal tender. It's a form of cryptocurrency which they use instead of money. Also, they went for economic reforms such as fiscal discipline and agricultural productivity. Now, since the government of Zimbabwe still is facing hyperinflation, the policies they could further use is that the hyperinflation it usually occurs when there is a lack of potential in the economy, and potential can only be increased by supply side policies, which is the only policy which can be used to solve the problem of hyperinflation. Now, what is supply side policy? Any policy that gives rise to aggregate supply in the economy is a supply side policy, which includes research and development, which includes technology, which includes finding new resources. Anything that gives rise to productive potential of the economy is a supply side policy. So the best policy to solve the problem of hyperinflation is supply side policy. Now this was all for this concept of hyperinflation in Zimbabwe. So share, like and subscribe for more informative content.